Hello, I'm David Breeden. I'm the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, a historically humanist congregation, and this is Coffee and Wisdom, when we look at some ideas from the past and the present and what may be happening in the future in terms of religion and philosophy. This week, we've been looking at the Advent season. Christian Advent began last Sunday and goes with 4 Sundays, and 4 candles are lit. And as we discussed, the Advent nowadays in Christian tradition is more or less just waiting for Christmas. That will probably come along. So no real problem there. But there are other things that other religious traditions are waiting for. Sure, we know that we've got Santa on the horizon here. Lots of people are waiting for Santa, whether they happen to be religious or not. Yes, some people are merely waiting for Christmas. The older Advent season, as we discussed, beginning in the Middle Ages, was about the second coming of Christ. It was actually a feast, and then we are going to go into this period of mourning and waiting for the second coming of Christ. That's kind of disappeared at this point, although there are some European vestiges of that celebration. We've also mentioned the secular people. We talk about the end of the world. And often we fall into apocalyptic language. Here we have the effects of global climate change. And a lot of the times we hear people who are completely secular talking as if the world is about to end in some way. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we do need to remember that we are talking an apocalypse and that has certain patterns to it, even if we think it's scientifically valid. Also, then yesterday, I talked about the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah tradition. I mentioned that something over 30 different guys have said that they were the Messiah since the first century of the Common Era, Jesus apparently being one of them, or at least claimed by his Christian adherents. But there have been several others over time that have been talking about this Hebrew form of the Messiah. Today, I want to take a quick look at the Mahdi, and that is the Messiah, if you will, within Islamic tradition. It's a little bit different, but not all that different than the ancient Hebrew and the Christian understandings of the Messiah of some sort. But Islam coming at a time that they were able to look at both the Hebrew tradition and scriptures and also Christian, means that Islam, and especially in the Quran, has a lot of echoes of the other two sacred texts, the people of the book, as it's called. The Mahdi actually does not appear in the Quran at all. That's the actual holy book, but some discussion of it does appear in the Hadith. That is the later writings or writings about the time period of Muhammad. What did his wife say? And these are gathered. They are not considered to be absolutely, totally the law, the word of God, but they carry quite a bit of weight according to the tradition and according to what that particular hadith does have to say. So within the hadith, there is discussion of this Mahdi, this imam that will come at the end of time, much as a Messiah within the Christian and the Hebrew traditions. So there have been a lot of claimants to this Mahdi as well, at least 9 over time. Of course, Islam really begins in the 700s, so it's more recent than the other religions that we're talking about. The Shiites and the Sunnis disagree in general about what the Mahdi might be. The kind of overarching idea, vaguely stated, is that Isa, Jesus, and Imam Mahdi will join together on the last day. And this last day is going to be expanded into this long period suddenly. And they're going to gang up on the false Messiah, or the Antichrist, as it's called within Christian tradition, and then establish on the earth a time of justice and peace by joining together. here's a little illustration. As you know, one of the things about Islam is the tradition is very careful about illustrations. So if you start looking online, trying to see what the end of the world looks like within Islamic ideas, you're going to not find all that much. It's going to be a little fuzzy like this one because of a belief that certain things should not be represented. Very unlike the Christian evangelical and fundamentalist ideas that are very graphic and very colorful and photorealistic about the end of the world and Jesus coming back. Since there is no central pope in Islam, they depend upon the teachings of respected imams. Imam Bakr said this, and this is probably the general feeling of many people, is the Imam Mahdi will be leaning against the wall when the Kaaba appears. And that's what we've got here is the Kaaba. You've seen that in pictures of Mecca. All right, when the Kaaba appears, and the first sentence he will deliver is, "I am the last vestige of Allah, his representative and proof of you. Anyone who would wish to make his greeting should say, 'Peace on you, O remnant of Allah on earth.'" So there you go. Now you know the address when you see the Kaaba come sweeping down from the sky. Within the Shia tradition, there are some elements, and the Shia tradition is just like Christianity. It has Protestant Christianity. There are bunches of different ways of thinking here, but there is a group called the Shia Twelvers who believe that the Mahdi is the 12th Imam and that he's already here somewhere, but he's just hasn't really incarnated right so that we can see him yet. So he's here, but he will show up someday. I did mention at least 9 people over time, men over time, have said that they were the Mahdi. One of the claimants to that title was a fellow by the name of the Bab, who lived 1819 to 1850. He established Babism, which led to the Baha'i faith, and you probably have heard of the Baha'is. The Bab was executed in Iran in 1850 by firing squad, but his teachings go on, and it is considered within Islam a heresy. And so there's persecution in Iran, for example, of the Baha'i faith. Some of you may know, if you've been to Chicago, you may have toured the Baha'i Center there, a very beautiful and interesting building. This is one of the buildings. There is one on every continent except for Antarctica. That's part of the Baha'i tradition. So that's very much alive today, but it is considered a heresy within this Mahdi and Islamic tradition. Thanks a lot. I want to think but tomorrow about how others are waiting, and because there are other religious traditions out there that do recognize this Christmas season, this solstice season that we're going into in terms of the darkness. And of course, those are based very often on what have come to be known as pagan traditions that were wiped out by Christian tradition over time. But we'll take a peek at some of those tomorrow. Also, a reminder that we will be having our assembly at 10:30 a.m. on Central Time on Sunday. I'll be talking this week about the mad rush for a silent night. I want to talk a little bit about, yes, the Advent season and the oddity that we sure do work very, very hard to have a still night on Christmas Eve, don't we? So just a little bit about the mad rush and maybe how to calm down a little bit. Thanks for listening. You can help us out by going to firstunitarian.org/donate. And you can find all kinds of our information there and find out about FUS. And we'll be glad to talk to you about that, email, etc. And I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks a whole lot. Bye.